Picking up right after the events of the first film, A Quiet Place 2 finds the Abbott family embarking on a dangerous trek into the wild to find a safe place. But deadly creatures that hunt by sound aren't the only threat that awaits them. Now, I have to admit that I wasn't the biggest fan of A Quiet Place. I remember thinking it was pretty meh. I actually went back and rewatched it in preparation for the sequel, and though I enjoyed it a little bit more the second time around, I still think it's a little overrated. Still, I wanted to check out the sequel because I thought the trailer looked interesting, and there's just something about me that really wants to like a post-apocalyptic creature feature. A Quiet Place 2 definitely gets started on the right foot. With a look back at day one of the invasion, we see how quickly a picture-perfect afternoon can turn into a nightmare, from watching kids playing Little League to watching your neighbors and friends being torn apart by vicious creatures. It's every man, woman, and child for themselves. Panic, hysteria, confusion, death. From Norman Rockwell to Norman Bates on acid. In other words, we're treated to a pretty freaking cool pre-credit sequence. A Quiet Place 2 picks up directly after the events of the first film. The Abbott's home is no more following their close encounter with the creatures, forcing them to set out into the unknown, led by matriarch Emily Blunt. Luckily for them, they run into an old friend named Emmett, played by Cillian Murphy, who reluctantly offers them shelter inside an old factory that he now calls home. Up to this point, A Quiet Place 2 was rockin'. Then all the characters, with the exception of the baby, start to make really poor decisions. And I'm pretty sure the only reason why the baby didn't make any poor decisions is because it spends the majority of the movie locked inside an airtight box with an oxygen mask on its face. Even during an apocalypse, that does not sound like good parenting. Now, my biggest problem with A Quiet Place 2 is the storytelling and its emphasis on characters making bad decisions in order to propel the plot forward. It all starts with, you guessed it, the daughter Reagan. She decides that she's going to save all of mankind by venturing off into the wild all alone in order to find a boat and then sail that boat to an island where she thinks other survivors are, and then come all the way back and tell everybody about it. Seriously, that is the major plot point in this movie. Now, poor decision-making on Reagan's part that ends up resulting in everyone being put in an incredibly dangerous situation is nothing new for that character. If you've seen the first film, I'm sure you know what I mean. But it's not just Reagan who's been bitten by the bad idea bug. Mrs. Abbott then decides to venture out into the wild alone in order to procure medical supplies for her wounded son and oxygen for her baby. Now, granted, it's medical supplies. I get it. You gotta have medical supplies. But you're leaving your wounded son to protect your newborn baby in an area that seems to be a popular hunting ground for the creatures. But, again, you gotta have medical supplies, so we'll give this one a pass. But then the wounded son decides to leave the baby behind and go and explore this big factory and makes as much noise as he possibly can while doing so in order to attract any and every creature within a 100-mile radius to his exact location. Now, there were some lapses in logic in the first film, but A Quiet Place 2 uses them as plot devices. Some of the life or death situations the characters find themselves in because of the poor decision making are pretty tense, but I never really feared for any of them. The first film lets you know early on that no one is safe, so there's a sense of danger. That sense of danger is severely lacking here. Cillian Murphy delivers a strong performance as Emmett, a hermit who's lost everything to the creatures, and Emily Blunt is a treat to watch do pretty much anything. I did find it difficult to like the character of Reagan, played by Millicent Simmons. Nothing against her performance. She's a fine young actress. But man, her character is just a fountain of bad ideas. A Quiet Place 2 is a great-looking movie, and John Krasinski is clearly a very talented director. There's a cool sequence in which Emmett and Reagan run into some other survivors, some not-so-nice survivors who have ill intentions for Reagan. And again, that pre-credit sequence from day one of the invasion is a total blast. But where A Quiet Place 2 stumbles for me is its storytelling. And it's not just characters making bad decisions. The story felt jumbled and the scenes were so loosely strung together that A Quiet Place 2 feels more like a collection of scenes instead of a fully realized movie. There's not even a real ending. The movie just kind of stops. And even though it's clearly meant to set up a third installment, it feels more like the editor just lost the footage containing the final 10 minutes or so. A Quiet Place 2 is a mixed bag for me. In a lot of ways it's similar to the first film, but it suffers in the same way that a lot of sequels do. At the end of the day, A Quiet Place 2 is a B-movie creature feature with an A-list cast, effects, and production design. The pacing is tight, the performances are solid, the creatures wreak plenty of havoc, and the baby reminded me of Frank Booth from Blue Velvet, which put a smile on my face. If you liked A Quiet Place, I think you'll be more than happy with this sequel. If you weren't a fan of A Quiet Place, this movie's probably not going to be for you. Go watch Blue Velvet instead. As for this Best Buy exclusive 4K Steelbook, I thought the picture quality and the sound quality were both superb. The 4K UHD picture quality really brought out the fact that most of the film was shot on 35mm. The clarity and detail were both vivid, there's a great level of depth, and the shadows are deep and dark without being obstructive. As for the audio quality, the Dolby Atmos soundtrack was flawless. This movie relies heavily on its sound design and the fact that at some points, there's no sound at all. I'd give the picture quality a solid 4.5 out of 5 and the audio quality a perfect 5 out of 5. As far as presentation is concerned, on the front of the Steelbook we have this artwork of the Abbott clan walking a sandy path into the unknown. On the attached slip we get the plot synopsis, the list of extras, the technical specs, and so on. There's the 4K UHD disc and the standard Blu-ray disc. When you remove the discs, you're presented with this image. Here's the back of the Steelbook, sans slip. As far as extras are concerned, first up we have Director's Diary, filming with John Krasinski. It's 9 minutes and 38 seconds in length. Mr. Krasinski discusses the impetus of the sequel and making Millie the main character. He discusses the shooting locations, the stunts, and more. Next we have Pulling Back the Curtain. It's 3 minutes and 47 seconds in length. It includes interviews with John Krasinski, producers Andrew Form and Allison Seeger, second unit director and visual effects supervisor Scott Farrar, Emily Blunt, and more. They discuss the idea that the creatures are alien parasites from a planet with no light and have become more intelligent now than in the first film, and more. Next we have Surviving the Marina. It's 5 minutes in length. It includes interviews with John Krasinski, Emily Blunt, production designer Jess Goncher, cinematographer Polly Morgan, Cillian Murphy, and more. They discuss the marina location, the challenges of shooting at that location for both the cast and the crew, and more. Next we have Detectable Disturbance, visual effects, and sound design. It's 8 minutes and 26 seconds in length. It includes interviews with John Krasinski, visual effects producer Lee Briggs, compositing supervisor Chris Balog, ILM visual effects supervisor Jason Snell, and more. They discuss designing the creature, adding to the design from the first film. For the sequel, the creature's interactions with practical environments, the sound design, and more. This Best Buy exclusive 4K Steelbook for Quiet Place 2 features phenomenal picture quality and sound quality, and we get some very nice extras, and it's a Steelbook. Who doesn't love a Steelbook? If you are a fan of A Quiet Place 2, then this release is an absolute must. If you've seen A Quiet Place 2, please let me know your thoughts on the film down in the comments section below. Let me know your thoughts on the first film as well down in the comments section below also. If you like this video, please leave it a thumbs up and share it on social media. If you're not following me on social media, those links are in the description. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Take care, and until next time, peace. A huge shout out to all my patrons and channel members. I appreciate your generosity and support of my channel. Become a patron today and join me for exclusive live streams, get early access to videos, and have a say in what movies I review on my channel. Become a channel member and get access to exclusive badges and emotes to use when I stream. Links are in the description. Say hello to the internet, Jeremy.
Hello to the internet.